PoE2's Endgame has received a bunch of updates with 0.2, and even in the week following, GGG has continued to deliver more. I've spent a few days in the endgame now, so I figured I'd go over all the big changes and give my thoughts and experience with them. The entirety of my time in this league has been spent on the Huntress so far. I went with Amazon and I'm about level 85 now, up to tier 12 maps. First, let's talk about the early endgame and the quest line associated with it. Previously, the introduction to endgame was a series of quests that essentially just made you run a bunch of maps over and over again. Complete 10 tier 1 maps, then complete 10 tier 2 maps, so on and so forth. It wasn't very exciting, it was just enough to give you some sort of task that would help you eventually find your way to tier 15 maps. Now though, you're tasked with seeking out corruption and completing maps designated as corrupted nexuses. As with the old quest line, this one sees you raising through the map tiers, so your first quest is going to be for a tier 1 or higher corrupted nexus, and your second is a tier 2 or higher, and so on. Each time you move up a tier and complete the quest, you will be rewarded with 2 skill points for your Atlas passive tree. At the end of a corrupted nexus map, you'll have to defeat one of a few new bosses, each having a chance to drop a new unique specific to them. Completing the nexus will then cleanse the area of corruption, and any remaining corrupted maps surrounding the nexus become cleansed maps. Corrupted and cleansed maps both have their own set of special monsters that spawn in them and map modifiers exclusive to them. Cleansed monsters don't drop equipment and instead drop extra currency, including the new fracturing orb. So this lets you decide if you'd rather complete most of the corrupted maps first to try and get more equipment and facing the corrupted enemies, or if you'd rather go straight to the Nexus and then run the cleansed maps for more currency after. Personally, I found myself doing a bit of a mixture, usually running 2 or 3 corrupted maps and then the Nexus itself, followed by some cleansed maps. I like this quite a bit better than the quest that we had before. It still has the same general purpose of progressing you through the map tiers, but it's much more enjoyable and gives you the choice of how you want to approach them. It also does a good job of forcing you to explore the Atlas. In 0.1, one of the problems that some people ran into was that they didn't stray far enough away from the starting area to make Citadels spawn. I suspect that's not possible with the new system unless you're ignoring the questline altogether, because you have to spread out to find the corrupted nexuses. In an early interview, either Jonathan or Mark mentioned that their goal with the Atlas is to have the player constantly finding new exciting things to do and push them forward, and that's exactly what this does. Anytime I see a corrupted area, I immediately head for it. Now maybe that changes slightly after I complete the quest for tier 15, but I think I'll still be compelled to go for them because both the corrupted and cleansed map modifiers and monsters feel rewarding and worthwhile. Another part of this update that falls perfectly in line with that goal is the addition of 8 new unique maps. When I open the Atlas and see one of these icons, I usually feel compelled to head towards it. The first 5 different unique maps that you complete will reward you with 2 Atlas skill points each, so that's one reason to seek them out, but they're also just different and fun, in my opinion at least, from what I've seen so far. I haven't encountered all 8 of the new maps yet, but I have come across quite a few. I think I've seen 4 of the 8, and in total I've probably uncovered 10 or so. I'm a little annoyed that I keep finding the Fractured Lake map, not because I don't like that one, but because I've come across like 5 of those, and I really want to find and try all of them. Especially that Boss Wave map that they showcased in the 0.2 reveal. That one looks awesome, but I haven't been able to find it yet. Fortunately, the unique maps seem common enough that I'm not worried I'll never come across it. I feel like for every 1 to 2 screens of the Atlas you uncover, you'll find on average one of these new unique maps. Speaking of uncovering the Atlas, let's talk about towers. Towers were a huge pain point in 0.1, and I'm happy to say that they are way better now. Towers are less common, they cover more area, and can slot in multiple tablets, and they can have any and all other mechanics within them. Personally, this has changed towers from something that felt like a chore to something I actually enjoy doing. With the old system, it felt like a waste to use a good waystone on towers, but now it's encouraged. The higher tier waystone you use on a tower, the more nodes your tablets will affect on them, up to double at tier 15. For example, if you have a tablet that states 14 maps in range are irradiated, placing that in a tower that was run at tier 15 will turn that up to 28 maps within range irradiated. And the number of modifiers you run on the map determines the number of tablet slots available. Running the map with 1 or 2 modifiers gives you 1 slot, running it with 3, 4, or 5 will give you 2 slots, and if you run it with a full 6 modifiers, you will get 3 tablet slots. This makes it really easy to juice up an area with exactly what you're wanting to run. There is no longer the need to run around and do all the bad maps before you use the tablet in hopes of hitting the right ones, or needing to find overlapping towers, or any of that. And since the maps can have other content, and each have their own unique boss now, running them actually feels pretty good. When it comes to the specific content or encounters that you can find on maps, all the ones that we had in 0.1 are still there, but they've been adjusted and we have some new ones as well. Rogue Exiles can now randomly appear in maps, and they have gear and use the same skills that players would, creating a pseudo PvP battle. If you kill them, you get all the gear they're wearing, including uniques, which is pretty cool. I will say that sometimes they feel a little underwhelming and easy. With one of the recent hotfixes, their life was nerfed, so that might need to be tweaked a little bit for some better scaling, but I like the overall idea, and when you do have fights that last more than a couple seconds, they're pretty fun. Another new encounter that can spawn on any map is the Azmerian Wisps. These flee from you when you're near, and they infuse monsters that come into contact with them, making those monsters more powerful, and eventually they will possess a rare, giving them new abilities depending on the type of spirit, and if you defeat them, your rewards will be increased the more monsters they infused along the way. These have a chance to drop new Socketables tied to specific gear slots, and have effects that are generally more powerful than the standard runes. 4 new unique Strongboxes have been added as well, including one that spawns and then respawns a single rare multiple times, adding a new modifier with each revive, and another that basically allows you to gamble gold for currency drops. All these new encounters are somewhat random and increase the diversity of things that you can do and find within a map, making them feel a bit more interesting. They also each have nodes in the Atlas passive tree to increase their chance of occurring and improve their rewards, so if you really enjoy one of them, you can specifically target them. I've been enjoying the Azmerian Wisps, so I've spent some points to improve their odds of occurring, and as I get more points, I think I'm going to put some into Rogue Exiles. Previously, things like Splinters and Breach and Delirium only started to drop at tier 11 plus maps, but now they drop at all tiers, with the amount scaling so that more drop at higher tiers. Every time you fill the reward in Delirium now, you'll not only get an emotion, but also a Splinter. In one of the updates in the past few days, they also increased the length of Delirium encounters, so that now they should last about 2.5 times as long as they previously did. This makes farming up the required amount for the Pinnacles feel a bit more manageable, and within the Pinnacle encounters specifically, dying no longer results in a loss of experience, so you're not encouraged to wait until you level up to attempt them. They also reduce the life of the difficulty 0 Pinnacles to make them more approachable at the entry level. I haven't tried any of these Pinnacles yet since the update, but they seem like good improvements at a glance. Before 0.2, they made some updates to the Pinnacle boss fight so that you could respawn a number of times based on the difficulty, and with 0.2 they've taken a similar approach to normal maps. You start with 5 revives, and as you add modifiers to a Waystone, that number decreases down to 0 with 6 modifiers. This is a great change in my opinion, as it feels way less punishing as you ease your way into Endgame, and it leaves it up to you how you'd like to approach a map. If you're powerful and confident going into the map and tier that Waystone, load it up with modifiers. If you're less confident, or you want to try a higher tier than you're used to, or you're going into a particularly important map that you don't want to lose, then maybe go in with 2 or 3 modifiers so that you have a couple chances if things go bad. Personally, I've found while I'm working my way through the tiers that I'm mostly running with 2 to 4 modifiers, partially because my defenses are lacking a little, and I like to try to push a higher tier than I might be completely ready for, and I love that it's an option now. It's so nice to know that if I make a single mistake, I'm not losing the entire map, at least not right now. Eventually I'll get to running 6 modifiers, but right now I'm really not powerful enough for that anyways, at least not on the tiers that I want to be running. Speaking of Waystones, they've made Waystones sustain much easier and way less RNG. Waystones no longer drop at a lower tier than the one that you're running, and the last rare in a map is guaranteed to drop a Waystone, so as long as you're not running Waystones above your power level, you should be able to sustain infinitely. Waystones dropped by map bosses now always drop at 1 tier higher than you're running as well, providing a concise method to move up in tiers. Another update that just came in a patch the other day that's an absolute game changer is that rares are now displayed on the map at all times. This means as soon as you spawn into a map you can see where they are and set out a path to hit them all. No more running around aimlessly looking for them only to realize you missed 1 or 2 and have to backtrack through half the map. This has significantly sped up the flow of mapping. In some cases, you can get through a map 2 or 3 times as fast if you're just trying to hit the rares and move on. I love this change, though I feel like it's one that GGG probably doesn't like as a long-term solution. I'm guessing they're looking at it as a temporary fix until they can come up with something better, but at the very least, it solves the problem and feels great to me. When it comes to crafting, we've got the new Socketables I mentioned earlier, but they also added multiple tiers to the existing runes, with higher tiers providing more benefit at endgame than they previously had. In the updates this week, they introduced runes with basic stats like strength, dexterity, and intelligence, and also gave wands and staves the ability to add sockets, with scepters coming next week. This is great to see as it gets us closer to feeling like sockets are actually a viable crafting bench replacement with a lot of options. A new method of crafting has been added tied to expedition as well. With Recombination, you can spend artifacts to try and combine 2 items into one, selecting specific modifiers from both of them. The more modifiers, the more powerful they are, the lower your odds of success. I've only tried this a couple times and haven't had it actually succeed yet, but it does provide a use for items that you find with one or two really good modifiers if the rest are bad. It's not going to be super reliable, but it gives you a chance to do something other than disenchanting, and if you succeed, you could end up with a really nice item. Earlier I mentioned fracturing orbs that can drop from cleanse monsters, and those will lock a specific modifier in place on an item, allowing you to craft on it in any other way without losing that locked in modifier. You can't choose which modifier gets locked, so you've got to get lucky, but similar to Recombination, this can be used to take an item that has overall bad mods with one or two really good ones, and potentially locked one of those in place so that you can reroll the others. I haven't really used these yet, but it's nice to see some new crafting options being introduced regardless. Overall, I've been impressed with the endgame updates for 0.2 and have been having a blast playing. I know right after the update dropped, a lot of people were upset and frustrated, some rightfully so and others not so much, but either way, after seeing how GGG has handled things this last week, you can't say they aren't listening or taking feedback into account and trying to do the right thing. Quite the opposite, they're taking it in and acting on it extremely fast in some cases. The updates to rares on maps, the delirium speed and timer, along with a number of other changes came directly from a Q&A with Zizaran earlier this week and were literally implemented within a day. They caved on ascendancy respecs and those are coming sometime next week. They're moving quickly and making the right moves, and it's nice to see. I'm so happy with these updates, and I'm having more fun now at endgame than I did with 0.1. Not that I dislike 0.1 at all, I put over 500 hours into it, but it did eventually start to get boring toward the end, and I've been pleasantly surprised at how much has changed and how good it's felt. Now obviously there's a lot of work to be done still, but things are definitely headed in the right direction, at least in my opinion. But what do you think? Have you been as impressed as I am with these changes? What stage of the game are you at currently, and are you having fun? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to toss it a like or subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a ton and is greatly appreciated. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.